Hello traders, welcome to this live webinar on automated trading and ECS, elite currency in general. Uh, Welcome again. This is the 11th session already, end of August, and heading to the fall kind of segment of the year. You know, summer almost behind us now, at least for the northern hemisphere. Uh, Feel free to reach out through the chat box in the live webinar, and of course the link with the Google form that you can write down the questions you would like to ask about the automated trading or elite currency in general. And let's take a look now at the topic of today, a bit of an update about the EAs in general, the current ones and new ones coming up. So that's the main focus of this webinar. Next week, we're going to talk about, of course, the results in August. Obviously, a new monthly overview to discuss. So we're going to have a webinar then. Next week is the 1st of September, so we'll have the new results to review at that moment. Sorry for that small delay, by the way, with regard to the timing of the webinar. Got a bit caught up in things, but we have basically one webinar per month at the end of the month, in the evening, or my evening at least, and the other webinars are GMT morning time. All right. So let me. Am I sharing my screen? I am. Good. All right. So first of all, Zeus EA, relatively new one, but in the meantime has been already trading 2 months, in fact, and is up at the moment 16%. So definitely a decent start. And drawdown 12%, definitely not that much, relatively for Forex and CFD trading. At least it's a mild drawdown, so very mild drawdown, I would even say. Um, we see, I think, with the equity curve so far, exactly the live trading copying what we typically see in the backtesting. It's a very sturdy, consistent kind of method, and I like that particular aspect of it a lot. It's not maybe an EA that's gonna generate all of a sudden, a massive amount in any month, but it's consistent. The equity curve is taking it, slowly but step by step forward, and I think that's an interesting part of this EA. Certainly, therefore, not that stressful, I would say, for me at least. I think for most traders probably, and it's an interesting EA to have, I think, as a diversification together with other EAs, right? So I think it's a good EA to have in one's portfolio, in my view at least. And that's what the direction we were going into is to have kind of a portfolio of EAs with different risk approaches and risk styles. And yeah, we had a lot of updates coming up. I'll talk a bit more in September. It could be an action-packed September, and probably October could be an action-packed part of the year, I think, for elite currency. But anyhow, regarding Zeus EA, let me finish this part first. You see very nice win rate, 75% on the long, 60% on the shorts. That's just really just random. I mean, it could be the other way around. In the long run, that should even out and become approximately 70% there. This is just, because it's relatively short data that we see this kind of difference. That's just coincidence. Maybe because, for instance, this is trading the euro dollar. So it's just because the euro dollar has been an uptrend that we see more wins on the long. So that will correct itself when we get a downtrend eventually, right? Profit factor 1.5. I don't want to discuss all these stats because we did that last week already quite intensively with the Zeus EA. Just wanted to do a small update. So far, 5.7% in August after almost 9% in July and June. A small profit, but we just actually June, of course, only had a couple of days of trading in it. because we started on the 25th of June. So good looking stats to me so far. Of course, we got about 4 more trading days left, so let's see. But I don't expect any significant shifts in this, and I suspect that August will close a little bit higher than 5.7. There's a pretty good chance of that. What about other EAs? For instance, Ultima EA. Let's take a look. Ultima EA, of course, created by Mislav Nikolic and with support from me as well. And Mislav is trading his account. I'm trading my account. We're also trading a common account. So this is my account. And as you can see, there was a sturdy drawdown here in this part. And I think it was probably one of the more difficult drawdowns to handle because it was quite steep. I would say that this part was also, for me, actually a little bit more difficult to handle because it was taking some time. And I understand that for traders it could be, maybe difficult to hang in the EA, let's say, because this is how Ultima EA works. You got great profit movement sometimes. Look at this burst here in February and March. Look at this one here in May. Look at this one in last year, August. It might not look like a lot, right? But this was actually a great move from -5 all the way to 162%. It just looks like a small push now, but at that moment it was just a huge explosion to the upside there. So that's how the EA works. It really capitalizes greatly on moments when it trends in a consistent manner. But then it can also consolidate. And when it's ranging, or maybe the trend is overextended, for instance, or the trend switches, it could just go sideways like this. And that could be difficult to handle. A lot of traders, I think, want to, or for instance, I saw a lot of traders join here and exit here, for instance, right? Because they just didn't have that last bit of patience to see this part. So that is advantage and disadvantage of Ultima EA. You got great profit potential, but you got to be patient for it sometimes at least. It depends when you start. If you're lucky enough, some members started here and they within weeks saw this. So it all depends on when you started, really, and what you just encountered at the beginning. It's so difficult to say from that point of view, but that is a characteristic that you got to be aware of and know about. And if that's something that you can handle, this is a great EA. If you have doubts, start with something smaller. Start with a smaller capital so that you don't feel as nervous about it. So this EA has a lot of profit potential in it when looking at live trading and backtesting at least, and can grow quickly. Now, of course, with any EA, past results do not guarantee anything in the future necessarily. Okay, but you can see that in live trading here, and in our view, the odds are on our side in the long run. Okay? Now, we have recently, anyhow, I'm getting a bit distracted. We're seeing after this drawdown, we're seeing a bounce again. It's funny how I was saying here at this point, I remember in the live webinar that if you analyze it technically, actually the equity curve is at support, past support here. And that's exactly actually where it bounced. It was just, of course, a funny comment, but it's funny how it actually worked out like that. This month is up. At my account, at least 23.3. We can take a look at the profit share account. And there could be some difference and differences between those accounts. Although we're working on removing those differences as much as we can, because of course it's frustrating to see my account up and maybe your account not, and it could easily be the other way around. By the way, my account down and the profit share account is up. So That's not easy. So we're working on trying to make the results as equally as possible so that everyone has more or less the same. And we're doing our best to work on that. I don't, we're at this moment we can't say that it's always going to. We're not that we haven't reached that point yet. There are differences at this moment because of the server, because of brokers, different brokers, and stuff like that. That's just the reality of the matter. But we are working on trying to make it less differences so that um, traders see kind of more or less more and more similar results, right? This is the 3% account. It's up 3.5. So you can see results vary from account to account because of the broker and server. So you can see that here as well with this account. Of course, it is less risk as well, but most of the difference is probably coming from, in this case, from the broker. Anyhow, still, all in all, of course, overall, still a very nice gain. Consider this is the less risky approach with 3%. Let me take a look at the profit share module here, and then we'll take a look at the next EA, and that ties into also nicely in some of the updates that are coming in September and October. Um, Here, this is the profit share model is up 17%. All right, so far, according to this is sorry. I'm sorry. It hasn't been updated. I have to check why August 19th. So scratch that. I don't want to annoy anyone. I don't know what the status is at this moment. Actually, it might be zero. It might be in negative. It might be up because of it hasn't been updated. So I'll do that for next. Normally it updates automatically. I don't know. Maybe it got disconnected or something. So this, skip this. Disregard this, I should say. All right. Anyhow, those are the two EAs at this moment. We got new and exciting stuff coming up in September and October. We're working hard in the background, and I think that there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff available in the upcoming weeks. Now, one of them is the ability to trade another EA, two other EAs. One of them is London Open Advanced. Okay. Now, at this moment, it's minus 2.95%, so that's maybe not earth-shattering here result, obviously. But it just started literally about 6 weeks ago, I think. And this EA is going to be slower. It's maybe going to be slower than Zeus EA in some ways, or maybe the same. Definitely slower than Ultima EA. But that said, I think it's a good diversification. Of course, we don't see the results. I mean, we only see a very small data set. It's about break even, basically. But we have tested it for a decade. So, and it did take in 10 years in backtesting a 1K account all the way up to theoretically 12 million. Now, let me right away add and explain that that is something that happened in the past. And of course, that is something that if one would leave the capital on the account. Now, obviously, no one would do that. Obviously, all of us would take some profit along the way, right? So it's just a theoretical number to show, let's say, the power or the potential of the EA, but not something to reflect expectations in the future necessarily. What I do think it shows is that it's robust. 10 years, no breakdown, no drawdown that I think was about 35%, if I remember correctly. Account didn't collapse or something like that, right? And 10 years is a long set of data, history. It basically takes about one trade a day on average, maybe not every day, but most days. So good number of trades as well within those 10 years. It's not like it took 10 trades in those 10 years, which wouldn't give us much info or say anything about the EA. So a healthy number of trades in a very long period of time shows how robust it is. The fact that it didn't make much in 6 weeks really is not the point of this EA. It's really about a very long-term robustness of this EA. I think that makes it an interesting one as a diversification. Okay, this one is coming up. Not available yet, but we are want to add it to our website in September or October. Something to think about as well. We are thinking about the Zeus EA as well and offering it in a different way. I can't reveal the details yet, but making it more accessible for everyone. So that's something that might be coming up soon as well, so that traders have that choice as much as they want to diversify. We actually might be thinking about a portfolio of EAs that is offered that traders can opt into, where the portfolio, where there's a portfolio of where the capital is kind of divided over the EAs to balance that out. That's another update that is coming in September/October. There's another EA coming up. Okay, a fourth EA besides London Open Advance. And am I missing anything? No, that's it from the manual trading side of things, I think. Well, I'm working on EAs as forever. Not just joking. But yeah, I did actually complete my own EA. It just wasn't. It was, as far as I can see, it's not good enough yet. The rules that I have are not in long term just not profitable. There are some good segments. There's some good parts, but it's just not consistent enough. Tested it on Poundian 5-minute chart. So I'm basically that failed that EA in a way. Now, in all fairness to me, that I'm not 100% sure if all the rules are yet were actually correct in that EA. It's quite a tiresome project. And what I decided to do instead was actually use different software for building EAs rather than working with a programmer one-to-one. I decided to work with a software provider that already has been working on their product for a decade. And rather than creating something myself, I prefer to use their software. So what I'm doing now is actually learning their software and adding our indicators and ideas to their software, which is takes some time. They have programmers, but of course they have all kind of priorities. So, but eventually, our ideas and indicators will be added to their software. That's the idea, and it seemed just more effective and efficient than creating something ourselves, because we could create a program, we can create an EA, but the thing is that you never know how an EA works out or not. You can do manual trade testing, of course, but that's a very, very long, intensive process. And if you change one variable, you can redo everything again, right? So it's difficult. You can, of course, you can look at the charts, try to create strategies. That's a fun work. But then testing those ideas intensively, looking at a lot of data, creates a lot of inaccuracies. It's it's a lot of work. Changing anything, of course, would mean redoing everything. So really manually testing such things is just very slow and imprecise. So just focusing on one idea, like I did with the previous one, I mean, you got to be a little bit lucky here in a way, or have a lot of time, right? So instead of doing that, we thought about creating a program that can test EAs faster with more ideas and more variables. But rather than building it ourselves, which would be a huge project, a lot of time, quite expensive, we found these great people, right? I will share the website with you later on. That have have a strategy building software infrastructure. We just add our stuff to it, and then start. We can create the ideas on the chart, but then start testing it with this software a lot quicker and a lot faster. That's the idea. We're in that process as we speak, and I've actually spent quite a lot of time on that previous EA with the programmer, and it's frustrating then that EA just didn't have the in it, as I probably tested a smaller period and looked really nice in that smaller period, but it just didn't hold through consistent enough in other periods. So just found an EA that did pretty well in a certain period, but it didn't, it didn't have that consistency. So yeah, a lot of time within that, and it actually is lost time. So to avoid that, this seems a more productive way to approach things, and that's what we're working on now. So 2 EAs at the moment, 2 more coming up, and I would like to create myself 1 or 2 or maybe even 3. I don't know how many ideas will prove, if any at all, will prove to be good, and that will be it then. Then we kind of have a portfolio at ECS where what complements each other hopefully, and I don't know, maybe we continue after that to create a few more. I don't know, but at least 1 or 2 is my goal with or 3 with this process. So we're working on that as we speak. But that, of course, is I have no idea when that's going to be ready. What I do know is that 2 EAs are coming soon. That is something I can speak more clearly about in terms of timing. But I thought that I don't know. I didn't do an update for myself about that, so wanted to share that as well. Uh, what do you think about that? Does that make sense to you? And I think we could. I don't know. We could even. I'm just brainstorming here. We can even make that available or offer that to traders to create their own EAs with that. I don't know. That's just anyhow more down the line. But let me know what you think about this process and the overall things we're developing, uh, and if you of course if you have any questions. I saw one question from in the forum, and the question is: when renting the EA, will the user have to test and optimize the settings before using it or not? So with any EA that can be rented, the no testing is needed, and no optimizing is needed. The settings are part, the settings that we use and the settings that have been used for testing, for live trading are included and part of the EA. And of course, some when you rent EA, some settings can be changed. You have that freedom and availability. That's actually a must that you can do that. But of course, also included are the settings that are used by us. So you have those settings, and you can of course also change some settings, so you can test other other aspects. All right, so that was a question in the form. Marius, no problem. Great to hear you and see you, Richard. Hi too. Richard uses both Ultima and Zeus, more or less from their launch. He writes here, and both have had good profitable performance for me, and he thanks us for that. And then he says, his question is, had an email this week from ECS, I think. He says EC, but I think he means ECS, saying my Zeus account was under the ideal amount. In fact, it has 2,700. So I presume the email was sent in error, and this is above the minimum for the account. Yes, that's correct. I'll actually thank you for that feedback. I'll actually check with our team what that was about. Then it's correct what you're thinking. It does not. It's in my view not well. I'll ask why this was sent. I mean, the minimum amount is 2,500. So, in some ways, what is ideal? It really depends from trader to trader. I think, in my view, uh, I guess in theory, one could say to lower the drawdown, maybe ideal is not 2,500, which is the minimum, but 3,500. So the potential drawdown is not more than 50%. But it's really so relative. What is ideal really depends, I think, on a trader and from trader to trader and what their risk acceptance is, what their risk tolerance is. And I wasn't aware that such an email was sent, and I don't know if it's that relevant to send actually, because as long as the trader has the minimum amount, that's all that matters. The rest really, I think, the trader can decide about that. And the more capital you have, the less drawdown you will have, but also the absolute gain will be the same, but the relative gain will be less. So as long as it's 2,500, which is the minimum, things should be fine. So I'm not actually sure why that was sent. I will check, and I'll get back to you next week uh, about that, and if I missed anything. I think ideal is really what you decide is ideal. If you think that with 2,700 the drawdown is, you could expect about 1,700 drawdown as max. Although backtesting, I've seen many periods that are way less drawdown. But okay, So with 1,700, that's about a 65% drawdown. As long as you're willing to accept that, okay with that, it shouldn't be a problem. Let's see. Kay is asking, with the London Open Advanced EA, would it also be a rental EA like Ultima? Yes, that is currently the plan. You never know how things develop, but that's the idea at the moment, indeed. Correct. But we are also thinking about EAs where there's a profit share option as well. So this might be coming up in September, October. By the way, I things are not yet confirmed, so I can't give any details at this moment. But I think there's a high chance that some kind of profit share will also, profit share form option, sorry, will be available in September or October or maybe both, so that there's that option for you if you don't want to rent it. If you want to rent it, rather prefer to rent it, then London Open Advanced EA is very likely to be one of those. Marius is adding about Zeus EA. I think regarding what is ideal, it depends how low it goes. Once I saw it was zero point 0.9 lot open at one moment as after starting from 0.01 lot, 1 micro. At that moment, the drawdown was more than 300 euros, but it could have gone lower with, or yeah, the drawdown could have gotten worse. I think he's trying to say here. So yeah, the bigger account, of course, the more space there is. Yes, that's correct, correct. But that said, it was tested, and we released that. I think, and we mentioned that last week, right? 5.5 years of testing on a 5-minute chart, with I think 330,000 candles of testing, with thousands of trades, about 250 trades per month. So it's a huge time period. It's a huge number of trades, and the max drawdown that it reached was about, I think, close to $1,800 or euros. So if you have 2,500, it should be a decent amount. That's why we say that's the minimum. Of course, you never know how the future is, and if you want to give it a little bit more buffer and be a little bit on the safer side, you can always add to that if you feel if you think that you're more risk conservative in this. Um, that said, it doesn't mean that the drawdown will often be that much, or will happen regularly or soon. I think, as far as I can see, that such heavy drawdowns is not something that is regular or common. But you got to be aware, of course, that something like that could happen. Yeah, and no, definitely, Marius. Thank you for sharing. And that it can, of course, that's how such a drawdown can occur, indeed. And that's why we got to be, although it might not happen often or regular or soon, we, as a trader, we got to be prepared for that and be ready that it could happen. It certainly has happened in the past, definitely. Richard is saying, thanks, happy with the risk and in the performance. Yes, it did have, yes, correct. There was some drawdowns that you don't even see here, one and here one, correct. But I have the same feeling as Richard too, and I think Marius is that ultimately it was also comfortable for me. Now, considering the fact that it could become more, of course, 50, 60, our nerves might be more tested at those moments, obviously, right, than it was with these. But I felt comfortable with that as well. Um, but yeah, when I get uncomfortable, I just try to uh, just talk to myself. This is part of it. This is part of trading. This is part of the business. Try to talk myself patience. And last but not least, Marius is adding, happy with Zeus. Big thanks. Just needs more capital. Yeah, I have a few of them running. Indeed, indeed. Hopefully we can. Hopefully Zeus EA can help with working on that, and the other and all EAs. Hopefully. Yes, very true, Marius. All right, folks. See, drawdowns is a friend indeed. It's a very could be a good mental trick to to manage through those times. I guess that's it. Thanks for your time, and we'll wrap it up, I guess. And we'll be back next week. Take a look at what happened in August with these three A's at least, and hopefully have more updates about all these things I mentioned and more concrete details, perhaps. All right. See you very soon. Cheers. Bye bye.